This is ACMi News, recognized nationwide as the first place winner of the 2022 Hometown Media Award for News Access.
As we approach Indigenous Peoples Day, Arlington stages an early celebration with an event at the Robbins Library. A descendant of the Wampanoag tribe talks about her life experiences and tells her story through her art. How do town leaders feel about the turnout for Town Day 2022? They are more than happy. So happy, in fact, they're telling you to already pencil in the date for Town Day next year. It was raining earlier this week, but do you think that put a damper on the beer and oom-pahs pouring from the Old Schwamb mill, or the kazoos kazoo-ing at the Senior Center in Arlington? Music makers managed to keep their jugs and drum kits dry, as their music simply dodged the raindrops. ACMi News is next.
From McLennan Park to Spy Pond, from Poets Corner to the Mystic River, we have Arlington covered, giving you stories that count. From people who care. Reliable, trustworthy, dependable. This is the 2022 nationwide award-winning ACMi News.
It's that time of year when Arlington celebrates Indigenous Peoples Day. But some people were already celebrating this meaningful day 1 week before. Hello, I'm James Milan. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm Summer Maxwell. The Robbins Library staged its own celebration on October 1st, called Honoring Indigenous Peoples Day, the art and teachings of Deborah Spears Moorhead. Residents had the chance to talk to Miss Moorhead, an artist, author, and culture bearer of the Wampanoag tribal nation. This event was made possible by the Robbins Library and the Dahlin Art Museum. Moorhead told her family's story of resilience and her nation's ongoing work to preserve and share their culture, language, and traditions.
Deborah Spears Moorhead is here to speak with us today. She's a member of the Seekonk, Pokanoket, Wampanoag tribal nation. She's a direct descendant of Massasoit Oosimiquin, who, as you know, saved the Pilgrims from starvation. And many of our Arlington viewers will recognize Cyrus Dallon's tribute to Oosimiquin in Plymouth, Massachusetts. Oosimiquin was a great hero of his.
I think that a lot of people that have come out of my age, they experience that they were taught a history that they're finding out is not really as truthful as they thought it was. They're realizing that us Native American people are still here, even though the history books that they read growing up said that, we weren't here, we weren't alive anymore. And so when they're finding out that that isn't real, they feel like they were cheated out of a history, as much as us Native Americans feel as if we were cheated out of the history and we never had our side of the story, our perspective was pretty much muted through oppression. So now that things are changing, we're able to tell our side of the story. We're here to show how to be stewards to this land. Obviously, Turtle Island, our mother, the earth, is speaking back with us with her anger and how she's showing it through weather. And when people give us land back, then the mother's happy because we know how to take care of her. That's what we do. And that's the connection that we have with this land, is that we've been here since time immemorial. Our bones are in this, people are buried here.
And we're finally learning the real history, the events that were left out of the history books. And this time of year, Indigenous Peoples Day, is all about elevating and centering Indigenous voices, which is why it's so wonderful to have Deborah here with us today, because we learn what we didn't know, and in the process, we learn how to heal together. It's a way of repairing our relationships.
Moorhead also had a selection of her art and books available for purchase, which was sponsored by the Cyrus Dahlin Art Museum and Robbins Library. Indigenous Peoples Day is set for October 10th.
Arlington's police department relies heavily on good relations with members of the community. That's why Arlington's town meeting voted to establish a Civilian Police Advisory Commission based on recommendations from the Arlington Civilian Police Advisory Board Study Committee, or PCABS. Last month, an open forum was held at the First Parish Church between members of PCABs and Arlington residents regarding the purpose of the commission moving forward and some of the things that PCABs uncovered.
Compared with other suburban police departments in Massachusetts, the Arlington Police Department has a well-deserved reputation for excellence under the leadership of Chief Flaherty. In 2020, just weeks after the murder of George Floyd by a police officer, the 8 Can't Wait campaign launched. This campaign urged police departments to adopt 8 policies that have been shown to reduce use of force during police interactions with civilians. When the campaign had launched, the APD already had 7 of those policies in place, and within several days had adopted the 8th. And in 2018, the APD was one of just 14 law enforcement agencies nationwide selected by the Council of State Governments Justice Center to be a law enforcement mental health learning site. So they train other police departments on dealing with mental health issues with the community. Our second key finding is that despite all of that, even though the Arlington Police Department operates at a high level of excellence, there are residents in town who have experienced deeply negative interactions with the police and who do not feel comfortable coming forward to make complaints about those interactions for fear of retaliation. Without exception, residents who shared these stories with the study committee were people who belong to racial or ethnic minority groups, people who are LGBTQIA+, and or people who are living with a disability.
A lot of what this commission that we've lined up here is not backwards facing, right? A lot of it is not incident focused, right? So if a specific incident happened, the commission will have a role, like Laura is saying, in facilitating, a community conversation and helping the community have confidence that questions are being asked and that processes are being followed, but I don't think it's necessarily going to determine the outcome of any particular incident that might happen in the future. Because what I'm saying is that there's a whole continuum, right, of what people might want out of that. And part of the hope for the commission, part of the job of the commission, is to meet with those individual people and help them think through, this is what I want from this situation, and right, is there a possible way for me to get that, right? Where should I bring my complaint if this is what I want from it? And that might look different from what the community as a whole wants out of a specific incident, right? And so, sometimes there's going to be a little tension between those two things.
PCABs also revealed that the commission will consist of 9 members, and several diverse town bodies will make those nominations, which will then go to the town manager for the final appointment. Those town bodies include the Human Rights Commission, the LGBTQIA Rainbow Commission, and the Disability Commission. The nomination process reportedly begins after the State Attorney General gives the green light.
Town leaders and residents alike are ecstatic over the success of Arlington's Town Day, which was held on September 17th. The Arlington Town Day Committee released a statement this week thanking everyone who helped make the return of Town Day 2022 a huge success, with the largest turnout in memory. The weather was outstanding for Arlington's special day. You could find a wide variety of activities and services along Mass Ave between Jason and Pleasant Streets. The celebration ended with a spectacular fireworks display over Spy Pond. Town manager Sandy Pooler told ACMi News it was terrific to see so many in the community come out and just chill at Arlington Center.
We had a great day that day at both events. I was shoulder to shoulder with people at Town Day. I think it was the most crowded I've ever seen, and I think that everybody feels that it's the biggest Town Day we've ever had. So that was great, and I think you're exactly right. People were so glad to see other people face to face. And at the high school, we had 1,000 people. I mean, we were expecting half of that. And people came through. I got a lot of comments from people saying how glad they were to see how their tax dollars were being used, which I think is a great thing. And it's just an impressive building. A lot of alums like, oh, I went to the old school, but boy, this new one looks terrific. So it was a great day for the town.
I know I read a lot of this on the Arlington list. A lot of people are going, boy, this is a really expensive school. But I think once people get to see it, when I took my first tour, it looked like a state-of-the-art airport.
And I think that's why we had this debt exclusion override, and so people's taxes have gone up specifically for this, but then they can literally see the bricks and mortar, and they can see the experiences that the students are having. They're just great. Auditorium there, people could see the performance spaces and the maker spaces and the science labs, and about a year from now, when we open the next wing, they'll be able to see all the other great new classes. So it's an exciting period over the next couple of years as more and more parts of the schools open up. And when we have our next tour, I certainly encourage people to come out. I think they'll be very impressed.
I know a lot of people in Arlington have come up to us at ACMi because we covered the event, just saying we've already penciled in Town Day for next year.
Well, yes.
That's how excited they are.
September 23rd, 2023. And so, yes, put that in your calendar. It will be, I hope we have as good weather as we did this year because that was superb. And I mean, we have a great history of Town Day in Arlington, and it's just a fun event for the whole community.
ACMi was among several sponsors supporting the event, which also included Platinum sponsor Cambridge Savings Bank and Gold sponsor Leader Bank.
Arlington is teaming up with Helpsy, a for-profit corporation whose mission it is to radically change the way people think about clothing recycling. According to the federal government, textile waste is the fastest growing waste stream in the U.S., occupying nearly 5% of all landfill space. Keeping items such as clothing, shoes, and towels out of the trash is vital to reducing Arlington's trash weight. Recycling clothing and textiles through Helpsy gives these items the longest life possible. The Arlington Helpsy partnership is set to kick off on Wednesday, October 12th, when residents can schedule a pickup of their discarded items on their weekly collection, as long as these items are placed in clean bags. Find out more about the program by calling 1-800-244-6350. Again, that's 1-800-244-6350.
If you're a senior in these volatile economic times, many of you have questions about finances and your health. The Robbins Library will be hosting a seminar on the A, B, C, and Ds of Medicare on Monday, October 17th. Benjamin Thornton, an insurance broker with an expertise in Medicare, will be at the Robbins to answer all your questions. Thornton's seminar at the library is perfectly timed, coinciding on the same week as Medicare enrollment begins.
Well, this is really important. On Monday, October 17 at 7 p.m., Plug In its 11th season, is going to be hosting Ben Thornton, a licensed insurance broker, to talk about the ABCDs of Medicare. And this program is really important for two groups of people: those who are going to be signing up for Medicare in the near future, or who are new to Medicare, and also for people who already are on Medicare, because there are two different enrollment periods. The first enrollment period is for, like you, someone who, and like me a couple of years ago, is when you have to sign up, because if you don't, you get hit with a penalty for the rest of your life. And that's called the initial enrollment period, the first time. And the second time is every single year, and it's open enrollment period. You don't have to do anything, but it's your opportunity once a year to make any changes to your plan that you want to. And open enrollment begins on October 15th and ends on December 7th. And as long as your plan knows by December 7th that you want to make a change, the change will appear on January 1, 2024.
When you sign up for Medicare, it's a lot of paperwork. It's constantly changing. It's like our tax bracket. It's like our tax system.
Absolutely.
How hard is it to keep on top of this, and why is it even more important to show up to this event?
Well, this event will include Ben Thornton, who will answer all your questions. He really is very well versed and has a deep knowledge of Medicare, and he stays on top of everything. So, for example, this year there are 4 big changes to Medicare, all of them good. Part B is the largest increase that it's ever seen. Annual Part B deductible will increase. There'll be more help with insulin costs for people who have diabetes. This is really good news. And mental health coverage via telehealth is improving. So Ben will talk about those things, but he'll also answer questions like what does each part of Medicare cover? I mean, there is an A, there's a B, there's a C, and a D. He covers all of them.
ACMi will also be covering this event. The A, B, C, and Ds of Medicare takes place in the Robbins Library Community Room beginning at 7 p.m. on October 17th. For more information, just go to the library website, robbinslibrary.org. Again, that's robbinslibrary.org.
Arlington's new Planning and Community Development Director, Claire Ricker, is getting acclimated to her new town. A reception was held for Ricker on Thursday, September 29th at Town Hall, where several Arlington leaders and residents had some questions and/or comments for Ms. Ricker. Prior to the Town Hall reception, Ricker was introduced to the Select Board at its September 28th meeting. Town Manager Sandy Pooler said Arlington is lucky to have a new, talented, and experienced director of our planning department. Despite Ricker taking a crash course in everything Arlington, one priority is already in place.
So we need to make a very key hire in this department, which would be the Economic Development Coordinator. I think, I reached out to HR today. We have a few applicants. I'd like to see more applicants. If possible, we could keep that listing open a little longer. I'd like to get it out in a few more places because I do think that we do need a good, robust process to get the right person in here to do the kind of economic development that the town is looking to do. I am interested in economic development. Certainly I've had experience as an affordable housing developer, but I've also had quite a bit of experience of disposition of public property to private developers, assisting private developers in getting any land issues cleared up in terms of to transfer them public property or any easement issues or things like that. That was part of my job when I worked in Lowell. It's a challenge. I think it's going to be a little bit of a challenge in Arlington. Arlington is a streetcar suburb. It's always, sort of even historically been based around residential business to some extent. I think that said, we really need to get out there and see what's available. The pandemic has kind of cleared the table. And it's time to get down, to start to look at some of these storefronts, start to look at some of the, some entrepreneurs.
Ricker says she met with Arlington's Chamber of Commerce Executive Director, Beth Locke, and the two are already planning Arlington's 2025, are you ready, semi-quincentennial of America's founding. In other words, 250 years after the start of the American Revolution in 1775. Which may be easier to say. Arlington is very fortunate to have quality drinking water, but having such clean water to drink comes at a price, and this is one of them. The Massachusetts Water Resource Authority is set to begin the last phase of upgrading their Weston Aqueduct supply main. Work already began this week, and this monumental undertaking will last through March of next year. I had the chance to talk to Town Manager Sandy Pooler about the areas involved in this massive project and why this work is so important.
So as most of our viewers probably know, MWRA supplies water to us. It all comes out from Western Mass, from the Quabbin Reservoir, and comes across the state. And it takes some very big pipes to move that water. One of which goes through Arlington, and the section of that pipe that they need to work on runs along Pleasant Street. And so for the next several months, there's going to be a major repair program along Pleasant Street. They're going to start at the Swan Place side, so sort of near the Unitarian Church, and move toward Route 2. You will see trucks and workers out there every day for the next several months until the spring of 2023. Traffic will continue to flow, but I would encourage people to be aware of that construction. There's likely to be delays from time to time. People may want to look at alternative routes. It is a necessary project so that we can continue to get some of the country's best water flowing to us. But there will be disruptions, and that is starting very soon. And encourage people to be aware of impacts to their traffic flow.
To see my entire interview with Sandy Pooler, including our discussion about the ARPA or ARPA-funded housing stability program in town, just go to the town website, arlingtonma.gov. Again, that's arlingtonma.gov.
After a 2-year hiatus due to COVID, Oktoberfest at the Old Schwamb Mill is back. This family-friendly event on Saturday, October 1st, featured authentic German refreshments like pretzels, bratwurst, and beer. There was also live music and hands-on activities for the children. These folks say, just like Town Day, it's good to see people in person, as we slowly ditch the habit of FaceTiming. But this wasn't the only musical gig in town. The Great Northeast Jug Band Festival rosined up the kazoos and washboards at the Senior Center on Saturday. Here now are the sights and sounds of Oktoberfest and the Jug Band Festival.
And we are standing on the shoulders of great musicians who started this tradition, 100 years ago. Those African-American men and women, I believe, as well, who were just creating a new genre and style of music that would influence, jazz and blues and bluegrass and even rock music. Yeah.
The Jug Band Fest was supposed to take place outside at the Jason Russell House, but Saturday's rain forced the bands indoors. But the rain didn't dampen the spirits, or the kazoos, or the oom-pah tubas in the slightest.
Hey boomers and Gen Xers, want to feel old? Neither do I, but John Lennon, yeah, that John Lennon, would be turning 82 years old on October 9th. And to celebrate his birthday, Breakfast with the Beatles radio host Chachi LaPrette and Beatles film archivist Eric Taros are set for a birthday bash at Arlington's Regent Theater called A Day in His Life, John Lennon. We caught up with Chachi as he was exchanging pleasantries with the Beatles' original drummer, Pete Best, who was a headliner at the Super Mega Fest in Westford last weekend. Chachi says the Regent Lennon show features 2 hours of Fab Four stories and footage you can't see anywhere else.
He's the greatest voice in rock and roll. And you know, we do these stage shows where me and my onstage partner, Beatles film archivist Eric Taros, is well known all over the world in the collector's circles because he has a huge collection of rare and privately owned films relating to the Beatles and each solo Beatle. And so in October, we celebrate John's life by going back to our home base, and that's the Regent Theater in Arlington. That's where we started with the show. He believed in the Beatles. He believed in himself. He believed in himself in terms of being a musician. And he believed in his partners on stage, Paul, George, and then Ringo. And you know what? He stuck with it. And through his career and his life, he became kind of a walking contradiction. But nonetheless, he was a unique individual. You know, in school, his teachers were saying that he's never going to go anywhere, he's never going to go anywhere. And then not so long after that, they're deciphering his lyrics to what is this man saying? Who is this Quarry Bank School graduate? What is he singing about? What does he mean in these lyrics? And that's why he wrote I Am the Walrus, to confuse those teachers with the students at the Quarry Bank High School, where they were looking at John's lyrics and trying to decipher the meaning. So yeah, he was a one of a kind.
LaPrette tells ACMi News that his love for music began on February 9th, 1964, the day the Beatles performed for the first time in the U.S. And you know where, boomers. Yep, the Ed Sullivan Show. That'll do it for this week's edition of ACMi News. Thanks for being here. I'm James Milan.
And I'm Summer Maxwell. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you next week.